Hi there, it's Shauna K. Lister. Welcome back. If you tuned in yesterday or watched what is technically the first part of this video, welcome back. Thank you for tuning in. I'm just jumping on to do a very quick live because I promised I would come back today. And today we're actually going to talk specifically. Okay, sorry about that. Connection just went in and out. So today we're going to talk specifically about the one question that you need to ask yourself about all of your interview responses, right? So it's sort of a filter that you need to run your interview responses through to make sure that they are helping your case, because you want every single interview response out of your mouth to really help your case in this match process, right? So if you haven't watched one of my videos before, hi, my name is Shauna K. Lister. I am the founder of sorry about that. I definitely suspected there was some lipstick on the teeth. Okay, sorry. So I'm the founder of Memorable Essay, and I help international medical graduates match into residency. I'm also the creator of the IMG Residency Match Application Accelerator. All right, so we were talking yesterday about just sort of the struggles that people have around interview prep, right? Very real struggles, focusing a lot on just people being nervous, so nervous, as I said, that some people will cover their faces halfway through every response and ask themselves, why am I so nervous, or just really feeling very terrified because you are somebody who in general you struggle with public speaking. So then to actually talk and advocate for yourself in public during an interview is very difficult for you. And then also people just being cautious, right? So whether this is your first attempt at the match or a second attempt at the match, for some people actually third or fourth attempt at the match, it's very high stakes. So everybody just tends to be very cautious about their responses. But what I like about just interviewing is that you really want to get your skill and get your confidence to the level where you actually really enjoy interviewing, in the sense that it's not just you being interviewed, but you're also interviewing programs to make sure that they're a good fit for you, right? So I actually spoke about the fact that a lot of reasons, or one of the main reasons why people struggle with their application preparation, with their interview preparation more than they need to, is this focus on, I have an interview, I have an email, I'm going to practice, right? And then practice, just the jump into practicing, entails reading over the application that you submitted to programs, reading over the email and reading over the website, but that you really actually want to do more of a thorough process, which I outlined, right? So you can always go back and watch that video, but what we spoke about is how you really want to just ditch practice, especially ditch jumping into practice, for a more organized system that will get you to where you need to be, right? So it needs to start with research, not looking up stuff, but actual research into yourself and what you bring to the table, research into the program. And then we had spoken about just matching yourself internally, right? So you figuring out why you are a match for a particular program each time, doing that for each program each time, and then figuring out the messaging around that, right? And then really going through guided practice. The difference being that the person who's listening to you is actually in a position where they can listen to your answers, where they can critique your answers, where they can give you feedback, because oftentimes you might give an answer to something, but that one answer could be interpreted in so many different ways, right? So you really want to speak your answers out to just see how they sound coming from you, but then also to get critique on, well, how can you improve this? What are the ways that this might be misconstrued? How can it communicate something, that you believe subconsciously that you don't want to believe to yourself, such as not, deserving to be in the room, or such as this residency being a stepping stone to a fellowship or something. You really want to have that sort of feedback on your responses. But today we're going to talk about now when you do that process where you're doing the internal matching and the messaging, so you're figuring out how you're a match and really creating messages around that you get out. in any situation, there is one question that you need to ask yourself. And the importance of doing the deep research and the importance of doing the match is that you cannot predict what will be asked of you in an interview. And so the best kind of preparation for an interview, especially for your residency match interview, is where you're really just prepared to think on your feet. So of course you have an answer to the most basic questions that you will be asked. I think personally, outside of being prepared, I think that just shows respect for people's time, right? So if somebody grants you an interview and they're going to take the time to listen to you, the least you can do is have solid, obviously well thought out responses to the questions that everybody knows you're going to get, or that it's quite likely for you to get. But outside of that and outside of being prepared, you really want to develop this muscle of thinking on your feet and being able to provide informed responses to any questions, as well as being able to ask very intelligent questions. All right. So when you're sitting with yourself now, and we're at the part of the process where you're doing the matching and the messaging, you're coming up with all of these messages that you're going to communicate, whenever the situation arises. There is one question that you need to ask yourself. So one quick question, right? So when you have all those responses, here's a question that you need to ask yourself. So the one question has like 3 parts, but the question is, does my response communicate any of the following 3 things? All right. So the question about your response. So you have your list of interview questions, right? So you have your list of interview questions. You're creating responses, you're matching internally, you're justifying to yourself why you need to go into this program and creating messaging that talks about that. When you have created that response, you need to check the response, or whoever you're practicing with needs to make sure, does this response communicate one of the following 3 things? All right. Here are the 3 things. Does this response communicate that, 1, I am capable of doing this job? It is very essential in the residency match process, as you would know, that whoever is interviewing you feels that you will be very capable of doing your job. Especially as an IMG, you're probably going to be depended on to work, of course, under supervision, but fairly independently. So whoever is listening to you needs to feel like whenever you're asked to work independently, you're not gonna run off the rails, or whatever is the term for that people who just go off by themselves and do whatever they feel like, right? Does this answer communicate does it communicate one of these 3 things? A, that I am capable of doing this job well. It needs to communicate that, right? Or does it communicate that I will enjoy doing this job, right? So nobody likes to work with people who don't like their job. We could talk about that for 10 years, right? Or they don't like dealing with patients, or this kind of patient, or nobody likes that. Nobody likes being on a team with a team member who doesn't pull their weight. All of those things that roll into and that come along with working with somebody who doesn't love their job, actually, they're pretty difficult, and they really are it's a pain to work with, but it's also a huge pain to manage, right? So is your answer communicating that you know how to do this, that you're competent, that you can do a good job? Does it communicate that you love the job, that you love this field of medicine that you are interviewing for? For people who are applying to specialties as a backup, which is a wise thing, it's a prudent thing on your part, you might struggle with this, or if you truly don't want to do a specialty and it's really a stepping stone for you to a subspecialty, you might struggle with it, but you need to kind of figure it out, because people will always be wondering, are you actually really going to enjoy doing this work? So is your response communicating that you're competent at this job, you can do the work, that you love doing the work? or does it communicate that you will be a fun and good person to work with, right? That's the other thing. Are people going to enjoy having you around? Are you a fit for the culture, right? Is this a culture where people are always trying to improve quality, always trying to listen to patients, to get feedback, that sort of thing? And are you somebody who you just don't listen, right? Because you have all the answers and you just, you know what needs to be done and you don't listen? Is there a culture of teamwork, and is your spirit more competitive? Are you going to fit in and thus be a joy to work with? So when someone's listening to your interview responses, when a program director, when a fellow, when anybody on the selection committee is listening to these responses, their primary concern is, can you do the job, right? Can you start on the day that they want you to start, and can you do an excellent job? Will you be somebody who brings them into all sorts of problems and brings the program into disrepute, or can you function on your own? But there are various filters that people hear responses through. It's not just I was about to say like a blind listening, but it's not just a random exercise of listening as an interviewer. I know, because I'm an interviewer and I have been for several years across different processes. There's always a criteria, but then there's always a way that people listen specifically to responses to figure out if you are what they need. And those are the main three things that they are thinking about, right? So when you're coming up with your responses to your interviews, definitely be sure that you run it through that filter. I hope that was valuable for you. If so, definitely join our Facebook group at the link here in this video, and also share this video with a friend who is preparing for their match interview, who you know they'd find it useful. All right, till next time, probably next week, we'll talk again. All right, take care. Bye.